Coach Summit's basketball IQ was right up there with all of them. Rest in peace to the legendary Hall of Famer, Coach Pat Summitt. Real tragedy in the sports world.
Yeah, man, Pat Summitt, Hall of Fame coach. And she really brought the women's game, basketball that is, to the forefront. She was a pioneer, man. She was like in her 20s, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when she started coaching.
They hired her in her early 20s, and she was only making about $250 a week to coach the team as the head coach. So you can imagine how far she came.
Yeah, man. Multiple national championships.
8.
So many All-Americans. Just revolutionized the game of women's basketball. When you thought of women's basketball, you thought of the University of Tennessee, and you thought of Pat Summitt. Great head coach, even better person. And, I didn't meet her personally, but you never heard a bad story about Pat Summitt, man. You never heard anyone speak bad about Pat Summitt. You got to give her so much credit for advancing the women's game, and she will definitely go down as one of the best head coaches, men or women, in sports history.
Oh, yeah. 1,098 wins for the legendary Coach Summitt. That's unreal. That's unheard of. Coach K may get there one day, but that's going to be a mark that's pretty hard to top. Maybe Gino someday. He looks like he has a few good years left in him, but that's remarkable.
Gino? Who you talking about? Geno Smith?
Gino Auriemma.
Yeah, man. Speaking of Geno Smith, remember Buddy broke his jaw last year, man?
Yeah, it was an unfortunate situation, but it did give the New York Jets a chance to be good for a year.
I couldn't believe that because I've been hit in the face before, man. Now, not voluntarily. This is like on some on a sneak tip. And I hate dudes who sneak hit you, man, who steal off on you, man. But my jaw wasn't broken. That didn't happen. So I don't understand what happened to Geno Smith. But I digress. I got off subject. You said Geno, so that's the first thing I thought of when you said Geno. I thought you were talking about Geno Smith, but we were talking about women's basketball, man. Let me get back on subject.
You are something else. Ladies and gentlemen, you can catch Daimeon Banks as he moonlights at Brothers 3.
Brothers 3. You know Brothers 3 is man, that was a strip club, man. That's very disrespectful, man. At least you can say Charlie Goodnights, man. That was very disrespectful, man.
We got to go to commercial break, but when we come back, we'll get into the interview. Mr. Al Daniel, again, nice enough to call in and talk about the time he spent and impact of the legendary Hall of Famer, Coach Pat Summitt. This is the All Things Sport Podcast.
Hi, this is Daimeon Banks. Thank you for listening to the All Things Sport Podcast. You can also catch me on the Puff TV Morning Combo on Blog Talk Radio every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Call 347-677-0956 and I'll give you Sports by Daimeon.
The All Things Sport Podcast.
We go back like spinal cords and car seats.
With Daimeon Banks and Pierre Banks on Spreaker Radio.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Daimeon. He's Pierre. You are listening to the All Things Sport Podcast right here on Spreaker Radio. And Pierre, we've been having so much fun on the show. We talked about so much already.
Now we're going to go ahead and get into our interview with a good friend of the show, Mr. Al Daniel. He spent time as an assistant coach under Buzz Peterson at the University of Tennessee from 2001 to 2005. Got a chance to spend some time with Coach Pat Summitt. And so he took the time to talk a little bit and reflect on his time with Coach Summitt and just the overall impact she had on the game of basketball and the world. And now I'm joined by a very good friend of mine and a frequent of the All Things Sport Podcast, Mr. Al Daniel. Al, thank you again for joining us.
No problem. Glad to do it, Pierre. As I said last time that we talked, that you kind of liberal with that good friend of mine thing, but I'm going to let that go. I'll let it go.
I hear you, man. Well, I understand that if we are not in the confines of your office at the Doty Academic Center and the University of South Carolina, we are not friends. But I like to let the All Things Sport podcast listeners think so. Is that okay?
That's okay. I mean, I am a friend of the podcast, so.
just not of me, huh? You are something else, man. Something else. Well, listen, thank you for joining the show. It just seems like you know everybody. I think the better question is, who don't you know? Who haven't you met?
Well, I tell you, with a 23-year career, in any career, and, you get to know a lot of people, or you cross paths with a lot of people.
And one of those people who was a very special person is Miss Pat Summitt. God rest her soul. Pat Summitt passed away again this week. Incredible person and beautiful inside and out. Al, you had the opportunity to spend some time with Coach Summitt as you coach yourself at the University of Tennessee from 2001 to 2005.
Well, let's, first, say she was one of the all-time greats. I mean, she was an icon. You throw that word around loosely sometimes, but when you do what she did, and as she actually, I won't say started women's basketball with this, but she started the popularity of it. Because she built a dynasty at University of Tennessee, and she'll go down in history as one of the all-time greats as a basketball coach, and not just a women's coach, but just a basketball coach also.
I've heard Coach Summitt be compared to the likes of John Wooden. Is that a fair comparison?
Well, in a lot of ways, yes. I mean, she was John Wooden was a pioneer. She was a pioneer. He won several national championships. She won several national championships. But something she did too, though, is when women's basketball was just more or less at its initial stages, she grew the popularity of the game. I guess you could say John Wooden did that, but men's basketball, it was somewhat already popular. But what Pat did was she just brought women's basketball to another level. She just did. I don't know any other way to put it.
What are some of the ways that Pat Summitt was able to take the game to the next level?
Well, I think one of the first thing she did, I think, was she won. And not only did she win, she won a lot. And so every year she brought attention to the University of Tennessee women's basketball program. I mean, she did that year in and year out. So what it did was, her doing that made people take notice. What's going on over here at Tennessee? And so people start watching it year in, year out, because she was, and I would say that even back in the day when she was getting things started, there was not a lot of parity in women's college basketball. And she started with the recruiting, and she got some of the best players, and they just dominated there for a while. And so that started something there that helped put women's college basketball on the map. Now, in the initial stages, you had Louisiana Tech was a really, really good program, but that was when women's basketball, they were part of something called the AIWA, or so I don't even remember the acronym for it. They weren't totally NCAA when La Tech was coming along, but when they turned into the NCAA program, that's when Pat really brought Tennessee to the forefront, and they started winning those national championships.
The AIAW is what you were thinking about with women's basketball in the earlier stages. Now, you had the opportunity to go into Coach Summitt's office a lot of times and just sit and talk basketball with her. From a 20-some-odd-year veteran as a coach, talk a little bit about Coach Summitt's basketball IQ.
Well, yeah, like you say, when I worked at Tennessee, I worked with the men's program, and the women's program, the women's officers just were right on the other side of the building, and you could just walk around the corner, and you were in their offices. So, and Pat did a lot too. She tried to foster the relationship with the men's coaches. I mean, she did that, but of course, the men's coaches always respected her. I mean, because of what she'd done. So, be it when we were there with Buzz, and then, of course, you had Bruce Pearl right after us, Jerry Green right before us. And not only did she probe their minds about the game, those coaches all went and probed her mind about the game because she knew basketball. And that's one thing I would say that during my time there, and she was open with you were talking about the game. She loved to talk basketball. And she didn't mind sharing that with you. And so that's one of the things I really liked about her. You could just walk into her office and talk about something or talk about, what about this play? Pat, I saw you guys run this play. And what about, she would go into detail about, well, this is what we were trying to do. And she was really, really good about that kind of thing. So you didn't have to be worried about going into her office and talking to her about those kind of things because she was really open to you about it. And to be quite honest, all those coaches too, they knew who Pat was. I mean, and they knew the impact she had not only on Tennessee women's basketball, but just in the state of Tennessee. I mean, Pat Summitt, she's got a court named after her. She's got a street named after her. I mean, she's Pat Summitt. But again, just being who she was open to helping, and she didn't really have any airs about her. I mean, because of her background, where she came from, but she, just being the worker, the hard worker that she was, and that's one of the things I really liked about her also.
At the time, you guys shared office space. Pat Summitt was it as far as Tennessee athletic goes, correct? Because the football program was headed towards a downward turn at the time, and you guys were just coming into your own as a coaching staff, just getting there in 2001. So Pat Summitt was it.
Yeah, they were winning a decent amount of time. And the football team, they were winning also a little bit more. They were winning some too, but the women's program always, they were at that time they were the gold standard. They just were. I mean, the time I was there, they recruited, they being the women's basketball program, Candace Parker was there. She's kind of one of the all-time Tennessee greats. Kara Lawson was there. So they had some good players during that time I was there at Tennessee.
And again, I'm joined by former North Carolina State, University of Tennessee, Tulsa, and Thurman assistant coach, Mr. Al Daniel. What was the impact that Coach Summitt had on the lives of so many young women?
As you probably have heard or seen in some of the interviews that have been done, all the players who played for her, you can hear the reverence they have in speaking about her, from the things she helped them do, from the advice she gave them, just from a coaching standpoint. I mean, they all revered her, and you can't hide that in the sense of hearing them talk about her. So what it tells you is it must be true. And so I think that's the impact she had on all those lives. And as to a person, to a player, they being her former players, they will swear by her. So that is a you know, as a coach, you want your former players to say, you know, the things that they're saying about her, that a lot of the things that they learned from her and that kind of thing. So that is a testament to basically who she was.
Just a beautiful, beautiful story she has, and all the things that, again, she's done not only for the women's game, but for the game of basketball in general and the world